testified at this hearing that always has a lot of attention on it because they talk about the threats facing the world. Now, suddenly some new questions for them about this administration, Aaron.
Oh, yeah, certainly going to be coming up tomorrow because those individuals you just mentioned were all part of the chat. All right, Jeff Zeleny, thank you very much. I want to go now to Democratic Senator Ruben Gallego. He's a Marine combat veteran who served in Iraq. And, Senator, you just heard the defense secretary refer to Jeffrey Goldberg, the Atlantic reporter, who Mike Waltz invited into the group chat, right? He was invited by the group, and then he sat in there. Nobody ever looked. He called him a deceitful so-called journalist. He didn't have any answer as to why he was in the group or anything. I mean, what do you make of his response, how he's chosen to answer it? He, of course, is the one who posted those war plans.
First of all, as Secretary of Defense and as a former Army officer, the Secretary of Defense should know better. He needs to take responsibility for what happened under his watch. If I had done any of this as a Marine, I would have clearly been court-martialed. There have been other people that have dealt and done some very serious time because of things of this nature. But the fact that he won't take any leadership, any ownership, and try to go get to the bottom of this puts us even in a worse situation. Operational security is extremely important, not because it keeps the reputation of the Secretary of Defense, it's what keeps our armed services, armed forces safe. And the fact that they're trained in such a cavalier attitude should really worry everybody that cares about our armed services.
And I want to ask you about something else he said. Obviously, the White House has confirmed these messages, has confirmed that this happened. And he denies that there were any war plans posted. But in fact, that there were, right? Goldberg has the targets and weapons. These were posted by Defense Secretary HEGSETH. So the targets and the weapons to be used to hit them, all of that posted by HEGSETH. Apparently, he's denying that now. It seems that he did just deny that, even though that happened. Senator, just to be clear, Goldberg did not publish that information because the Atlantic felt that it would be inappropriate and wrong. They did not publish it, but it was put into the group.
This is a distraction. This is a distraction that we're talking about Goldberg. What we should be talking about is the fact that, Secretary of Defense was unqualified to begin with, and now he's actually proven himself. This is a mistake that under any other administration would have already made the Secretary of Defense resign. The fact that they're trying, again, treat this as a cavalier attitude, what does it say to our allies? What does it say to our enemies? Now, the Houthis don't necessarily have a very good signal intelligence capabilities or capabilities to hack and track our phones, but they do have allies. They are allied with Iran. They are sometimes allied with other malign actors. They may be able to do that. And the fact that now everyone knows that some of our most key national security advisors are all talking on Signal should really scare us. And the fact that this is happening and you have an utter lack of leadership coming from this administration, from Secretary of Defense, is absolutely offensive.
Your colleague, Republican John Cornyn, Senator, told our Manu Raju that the quote, it sounds like a huge screw up. And then Congressman Don Bacon, another Republican, former Air Force veteran, and a signals intelligence officer, just told Manu this. I wanted to play it for you, Senator.
I will guarantee you 99.99% with confidence Russia and China are monitoring those two phones. So I just think it's a security violation. And there's no doubt that Russia and China saw this stuff, within hours of the actual attacks on Yemen or the Houthis. So that's wrong.
Obviously, the two phones he appears to be referring to are the security advisor and the vice president. There's obviously CIA was in there. I mean, they were all in there. Defense secretary. But how are your Republican colleagues that you've spoken to? Do they have that outrage? And are they willing, like Senator Cornyn, like Congressman Bacon, to speak out?
Look, we are barely getting back into session, but I'll tell you what we know for a fact. Had this been done by the Biden administration, the Obama administration, Republicans would be losing their minds. And the fact that they're not is that they treat this national security breach as a partisan issue. This is not a partisan issue. If a Democrat had done this, we would be just as outraged. And someone within that chain, someone who's responsible, whether it's the Secretary of Defense or whether it's Walz, someone has to take responsibility, and someone has to resign for this. This is very dangerous. These are national security communications happening. You're talking about targeting, you're talking about weapons, you're talking when they're going to go, when they're going to fly. And the fact that it was done in such a cavalier attitude also just gives you overall bigger problems happening with this administration, that they feel they can just run amok at this point and feel that there's no consequences. The consequences, though, are the safety of our Armed Services Committee, and the fact that they're not treating this seriously should really question whether Secretary of Defense HEGSETH should still be in there, because he's not dealing with the moments.
All right, Senator Gallego, I appreciate your time and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hypocrisy, contradiction. Sometimes I am just confused. So, you may recall various people at Fox News and within the Trump-Trump Republican Party have a total over-the-top, non-stop fascination, for want of a better description, blaming Hillary and her emails. But in comparison to HEGSETH's, well, his Signal group, where he invited a journalist to join, it was, what? Here's the contradiction. What's happening now, they don't really want you to talk about Hillary's emails. Instead, they're saying, how dare this journalist not remove himself from the group? He was just there waiting for a story. That says so much, because forgive me if I'm wrong, by the way, I always thought the idea of a journalist is to find a story and then share it as a bit of news. Obviously, in the MAGA world, that is something which is at the front of their basic understanding of how journalism works. And of course, what now happens is, well, the president said, didn't know anything about it. News. Couldn't say it was fake news, so he had to go at the Athletic, the publication that the journalists work for. Because, of course, it's their fault. They accidentally got added to a Signal group. And HEGSETH, well, he's doing tarmac interviews now, because Trump's obviously said, when the going gets tough, stand by a plane and use the time up and make sure the plane kind of drowns the sound out, etc. Waffle, waffle, waffle. And just add, blame the media, which is what HEGSETH did. Here's my take on everything. The journalist has said that he was added to that group, and that's a particular story he's come out with so far. I think, what's the cliche? There's a lot more where that came from. Watch this space.
Looking forward to it. One question.
Can you share how your information about war plans against the Houthis in Yemen was shared with a journalist in The Atlantic, and were those details classified?
You're talking about a deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes time and time again, to include the hoaxes of Russia, or the fine people on both sides hoax, or suckers and losers hoax. So this is the guy that peddles in garbage. This is what he does. I would love to comment on the Houthi campaign, because of the skill and courage of our troops. I've monitored it very closely from the beginning. And you see, we've been managing 4 years of deferred maintenance under the Trump administration. Our troops, our sailors were getting shot at as targets. Our ships couldn't sail through. And when they did shoot back, it was purely defensively or at shacks in Yemen. President Trump said, no more. We will reestablish deterrence. We will open freedom of navigation, and we will ultimately decimate the Houthis, which is exactly what we're doing as we speak from the beginning, overwhelmingly.
Why were those details